Good evening and welcome to the BizNews Briefing. On tonight's show, we'll have a look at fresh testimony around alleged police and political capture in South Africa, political pressure building in the UK, and then a wealth-building insight from mining analyst Peter Major after a turbulent week in metals. Last night, BizNews journalist Chris spoke to retired US intelligence analyst Col Chris Wyatt. He reacted to an ANC minister in the presidency, reaffirming ties with Iran at a Tehran Revolution anniversary event, and unpacked what it could mean for already strained US-SA relations.
Let's go to international relations. We've had an African National Congress minister in the presidency, Sindisiwe Shikunga, celebrating the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution and reaffirming close ties between South Africa and Iran in her address at the commemoration in South Africa.
Well, I find it particularly, I don't want to say hilarious, but it's not hilarious. It is certainly ironic that the ANC, which purports to be about human dignity and equality and fairness, commemorates and supports an organization that has oppressed, repressed, murdered, imprisoned, raped, and destroyed the lives of millions of women, millions of Iranian women, and has basically applied a 13th century theocracy upon the people of Iran without their consent, all because of a popular uprising, because by the time the late 70s came around, the Shah had become so unpopular because of his repressive secret police and missteps by his government. And there was popular support to overthrow the Shah. But I think only a handful of people in 1979 would have wanted what Iran has become, a rogue terror sponsor and a state bent on oppressing women and executing people needlessly and just murdering its civilians, its citizens in the streets when they stand up and ask for fairness. And to see an ANC politician and listen to the ANC vomit this garbage about how they are for the oppressed and they stand for justice, and then take Israel to the International Court of Justice over what they claim is a moral high ground, yet they continue to support a state sponsor of terrorism. I mean, one has to ask the question, what is the affiliation with the ANC? It's not because the Iranians are humanitarians. It's not because the mullahs are for equality and justice. It's not because they believe women have rights. It's not because they are interested in advancing humanity. It's because they're 13th century theocrats who are running the country like it's a mosque. And that's not an attack on Islam. I'm saying that they're running it like they're running a church or a mosque, not like they're running a country. And the ANC supports a government that just murdered thousands of its own citizens. They invite navies to their shores for a terror designated group, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is beyond the pale. At some point, you have to wonder, is this an intentional effort to anger Donald Trump? Because the ANC seems to be hell-bent on playing the role of victim here. They want sanctions. I think the leaders want to be, so they can stand up and say, look, we're standing up to the evil Satan, Donald Trump. You know, I've crafted an AI song at Afrikaans called Trading in the Jan card for the Trump card. And, we don't hear anybody complaining about Jan van Riebeck being blamed for apartheid and colonialism recently. They're all blaming Donald Trump, but Donald Trump had nothing to do with apartheid or colonization in South Africa. But the point of the story is that the ANC is morally bankrupt in anything it says in support of such a terror state and a terror regime. There is no justification for anyone who actually believes in ending the system of apartheid and separate development. No one who believes that was morally bankrupt who could possibly bring themselves around to legitimately support a state like Iran. The ANC has betrayed the liberation struggle time and time again. And this is just the latest example of an organization that's more interested in clinging to power than it is in serving the democratic needs of its citizens, black, white, and brown. And this is a epic own goal. But I mean, look, if we kept the score sheet, a little measles sheet of all the things the ANC's done that has been against the interests of South Africans in the past 18 months, it would run for several pages. But at the same time, every time that the US media says, well, Trump is upset with South Africa, and the government of South Africa goes, why? What have we done? We've never done anything to America. Really? I mean, come on, let's talk about honesty here. But this is shocking that they continue to do this. And it also shows you, in my view, Chris, the wholesale ignorance of the second generation of ANC leaders in governance now. People who've come up in the post-apartheid era. Many of these people are frankly brain dead. They're dumber than a box of rocks. And frankly, that's an insult to a box of rocks. Rocks would be insulted to be compared to these people who have no grasp on history. They have no understanding of history. And they simply run around and parrot the propaganda that someone has told them. It's really sad to see.
Chris Steyn also spoke to policy and political analyst Professor Theo Venter, who unpacked what the ongoing Madlanga Commission is revealing about the intersection of politics, policing, and power, and what that could mean for senior figures now under scrutiny.
Now, if General Mkhwanazi did not call that shock press conference, do you think General Sibiya would eventually have become National Police Commissioner, and Mr. Mchunu might even have become the next president of the African National Congress?
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario that you're talking about, because there is criticism on Mkhwanazi himself, and we've seen some pushback through the evidence led by McBride and one or two others. And of course, Paul O'Sullivan is still running around. They haven't cornered him yet. And I'm sure he's going to give some pushback. And I think the recommendations would include a reference to how Mkhwanazi did it, because it was unconventional. And if you take the Mkhwanazi example and you see how it spilled over into the Defense Force, where the Chief of the Navy are now talking closely, and he's saying things about his political overseers, which I think is militarily uncalled for. The Chief of the Health Services did the same, and the Iran participation, the naval exercises. It tells you that there's a big problem at the top structure of the Defense Force, and I think they took a leave from what happened in the police. And I think one of the recommendations would be, if I can describe it in the following way, that politicians must get out of administration, and the administration, meaning the generals or the commissioners, must get out of politics. And what we've seen in these investigations is that those two are too closely intertwined, and the untangling of that is really astonishing if you see how deep it goes, where paper bags were delivered, the newest evidence, how Ozempic, the wonder drug nowadays, how that was delivered to certain police officers, jet skis, boats, weddings. It's just incredible how this and social events, social parties. For me, as a political analyst, it was interesting every time when I saw on TV, or personally when I attended as an analyst, that police officers are at the ANC's annual elective conference. They shouldn't be there unless they're protecting the politicians, but they can't be there participating. And they were there, and the same with the military. And I think if these two investigative bodies can do anything, it's to take those things a little bit further out of reach, and so that we get a better governed police, a better governed Defense Force. I know this interview is not about the Defense Force, but it's about the security structures in general, and that politicians know where their limitations are.
In the UK, Bloomberg reporter Rosalind Mattison explains how controversy linked to the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington and his historical ties to Jeffrey Epstein have intensified pressure on Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Of course, the pound is in focus. Suddenly, this political risk is back on the table for Keir Starmer. The UK Prime Minister's political future is in the balance after his chief of staff quit over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington. This after revelations over Mandelson's past ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And according to our sources, Downing Street is bracing for cabinet ministers to push for Starmer's resignation. Let's bring in Bloomberg's Rosalind Mattison. So, Ross, how did he get into such a situation to begin with?
Well, it's interesting, as you say, the whispers around Starmer are getting louder and louder and more public, which suggests that he actually is now in some danger because, of course, the issue around Mandelson has been known for some time, his past links to Jeffrey Epstein, and yet this administration pushed ahead with making him, at least then, the ambassador to the US. The idea was he understood Donald Trump. He'd be able to help the UK navigate the waters of this Trump presidency, which turned out obviously to have been a mistake because all that's really dogged him has been the Epstein issue. And now it's really consuming Starmer's government, the extent to which Keir Starmer knew about Mandelson's long-running ties to Epstein and yet made him ambassador anyway. And so now, of course, his chief of staff has resigned. But does that just in a way blow back against Starmer, because ultimately the person who made this decision was Keir Starmer. And so, of course, his chief of staff has resigned because he suggested that he do it, but the ultimate decision was not his. And so you can see now the noises around Starmer growing ever louder. The concern is this just consumes his government for, the election's not for a couple of years, but he's had several missteps and mistakes in his tenure already. And can he get above this and beyond it and get back to what he wants to talk about, at least in the next couple of weeks? That's very unlikely.
Yeah, so is there a way that he can shore up his position at this point, especially when he does have a couple of local elections also coming up?
Well, that's the question. Can he? Does he bring some of these people into the tent, give them bigger jobs in his government? Would they really want to do that if they're considering challenging him for the leadership? Do they wait to see how these elections go? You've got one by-election in a couple of weeks. You've got a big set of local elections in May. Those tend to go against the national government no matter what. People use them as a chance to give the national government a bit of a kicking, but they could be pretty bad for Labor, especially bad in this case. So do you bide your time, you wait for those to roll through, Starmer takes, he has to take the heat for that outcome no matter what, and then you step in and challenge him. So, would they really want to come into his administration in a bigger way right now if that's what they're really thinking about? In fact, keeping your distance from Starmer might benefit you if you're really thinking of making a leadership challenge and saying you can be the one who can lead Labor, into the next election, which is still some years away, but a lot of ground for Labor to make up either way. So it's very difficult to see what could be the path forward for Starmer here. What can he do to shore up his leadership, with these allegations still rolling on and likely to go on for several months at least.
Cody from Paul has sold multiple vehicles to We Buy Cars. Suspicious? I think so.
Is that a crime?
No. Where are you getting the cars?
I buy them and I sell them at the spot like a normal person.
Okay.
No, man, I'm just an accounting student. I know a good deal when I see one.
That's Excel meant. What's more stressful, tax season or selling a car at We Buy Cars?
Tax season, obviously.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
And our wealth building tip of the day comes from mining expert Peter Major. He discussed his thoughts on Orion Minerals, a small cap mining stock held in the BizNews Ricardo portfolio. Major said recent recognition from BHP added fresh credibility to Orion's longer-term upside story.
BHP says we're not spending money looking at the Prieska ore body that is so well known. I think Errol Smart loved bragging up. He had more drill rigs, 15 drill rigs on site, proving up that 30 million plus ore body at the bottom of the shaft than any company, I think, in South Africa had going at one time. So you're right. That is such a prospective area. So much is known about that area already to make you very bullish, to make you positive, to know you're in elephant country. But now we want to define that knowledge. We know there's more volcanogenic deposits like Prieska, but how big are they? How rich are they? How far away are they from Prieska? Do they go all the way to O'Keefe? Do they go up to Hemsburg, Black Mountain? The Northern Cape is a hot area for base metals. And BHP's stimulated enough. And we've mentioned Orion probably has a bigger land package in South Africa than any other mining company. But it's a junior. So it's stretching its budget and it can't explore probably even half the territory it's got. So it's very welcome. It's not big money. They're putting in $500,000, 8 million rand. But with today's drones and geophysics and people like Edgar Stetler, it's amazing what you can get, Alec, for $500,000 now with experienced geophysicist and a drone.
So another bull point for Orion, and 47 cents still, you're not scared at that level?
No, I'm not. And if it had worked its way up there over the last 3 years like we thought it was going to, I'd probably be an avid buyer. But because it's gone from 21 to 47, and it's coincidentally gone up with silver going from 40 to 110. It's coincidentally, simultaneously gone up with gold going up 60%, and copper going from 8,000 to 13. That gives me a little hesitation here. If I'm starting a portfolio from scratch, is my first buy going to be Orion at 47? Probably not, Alec. I'm always trying to be cute. I get burned as much as I don't, but I would try to be cute and wait, not so much for Orion just to have a pullback as maybe our market, maybe the metals market, because I'm not sure this is the only metals pullback we're going to have. But I am cognizant of the fact that whatever happens at the end of December usually continues January, February, March, and April. That's my rough recollection of my 50 years. So we're going through April pretty powerful, pretty strong. We could continue that way for another couple months, but maybe we're at a plateau. I can't see us going higher. Orion's got value here, but they still have to start mining, and that's the $1 million question everybody's got. Orion's been drilling a deposit we've known about for 7 years. They've been doing bankable feasibility studies, but they haven't pumped out that shaft. They haven't mined anything. They haven't got a mill yet. So people I've been talking to now about this, yes, it's fair value there, Peter, but we want to see some action now to buttress the share price.
That's it for tonight's BizNews Briefing. I'm Kerry Lanigan. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.